Hey, welcome to Disenthrall. I am Patrick.
I'm Ryan.
And today we're going to be interviewing Ryan. We're going to actually have him try and tell us a little bit about his history, his background, his journey from basically high school politically to now, and how you got here and the steps that you went through to get here and kind of how everything went. So I know you have kind of a general outline of things you want to talk about, and then I'm just going to disrupt everything you're trying to do with questions. So yeah, let's do it.
Disruptor.
All right, so start from the beginning.
All right, so first, it's before high school, and before high school, I didn't care about politics or global issues at all. Before high school, you're just like, whatever, I'm having fun.
Right.
Everybody doesn't give a shit about what's going on.
Right.
One thing I did notice was that my grandpa, who the person I looked up to most, told me he was a registered libertarian.
Really?
Yeah.
Like capital L, capital L?
Yeah, no, I
guess that's what registered means, right?
Well, I guess, but I mean, what's the difference between capital L and...
So you for instance, I can be like a lowercase libertarian, meaning I don't claim party membership, I don't vote the party line, but I consider myself someone that follows libertarian principles, I guess.
Okay, gotcha.
Gotcha.
I mean, he's registered libertarian, so he would definitely be voting libertarian in the elections and stuff like that. So that really stuck with me because I've heard about Republicans, I've heard about Democrats, but no one's ever told me that they were a registered libertarian. That was kind of weird to me, you know?
Did you even know what it was at the time?
No, I was like, oh, that's different. That's all. I was like, that's different. I don't know.
You're weird.
Yeah. Well, my grandpa was a different person than anybody else in my life, so it made sense.
How?
He was the only one, everything that he's accomplished, so much, he did accomplish so much, compared to everybody else that I knew. He worked his way up to being CEO of a company, didn't graduate high school, went off to the Korean War.
So he didn't create a company, he
worked his way all the way up from
from the inside.
Yeah, from
that's
the
especially impressive.
bottom position, and worked himself all the way up to the CEO.
Okay.
Of some gasket company that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that experience will teach you about freedom, any kind of, I don't know, if you haven't been in a position of running a company or being responsible for other people's jobs or competing in the marketplace, if you haven't had that experience, you really can't legitimately talk crap about capitalism and the free market and the market pressures that control you and things like that. So it doesn't surprise me that a CEO is libertarian. I think that matches.
Right.
Yeah.
He basically he was all self-studied. He had this very extensive library of books.
Is he still around?
No.
Oh, man, I'd love to meet him.
Oh, yeah, he was a great guy. He had, many, an Anchorman, he had many leather-bound books and mahogany.
Oh, wow.
That kind of shit with, old, whiskeys and scotches inside and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. Being, the young person, I was always oh, whatever, Grandpa. While he was telling me all his old stories, but I mean that still stuck with me later, and I appreciate all the stories that he told me and stuff like that. So
right.
It was awesome.
Right.
That really stuck with me. So then we get into actual high school. So this is whenever I first started caring about issues, just in local news though, and during that time, which it was around 2005-ish. It was mostly about illegal immigration. So I would watch the news with my mom every night. And at this time, I pretty much just had really emotionally charged reactions to what I was seeing on the news. And I haven't really learned to approach things logically yet and break them down.
So how did your mom react? That's usually a good kind of tell.
Yeah, my mom is so down to earth and non-confrontational and stuff like that. That she never had a reaction to anything. She never said what her viewpoint was.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's also important to know at this time that I wasn't seeing my dad during high school. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't getting any kind of influence from him and what he thought politically or anything like that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the extent of like my experience in high school. It's just watching local news. Which,
Didn't really care. We were upset about immigration.
Yeah, because I went to a high school that was like 70% Hispanic. So, I was immersed in that kind of culture, and I knew people that were like in the United States illegally. Like,
right.
Yeah. So,
but what about connect the dots? So, like, what about your experience in high school upset you about illegal immigration? Like,
well, I was so ignorant about the issue that I was just like, oh, those damn people coming into the United. Like, I mean, yeah, we're like in Texas. I mean, so like we experience this issue a lot.
Foreigners.
Right. We need to build that wall about 10 feet higher.
And then that moat 10 feet down.
Right. So, I mean, I was just like, I was young. I was super ignorant. I just like, I was able to latch onto something emotionally and like.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So then I went off to college. And my freshman year was like the first time I started to understand the importance and power of knowledge and information. So before, I wasn't ever like stupid in high school, but I didn't really care to be smart, I didn't care about being smart.
It's public school. They don't really teach you to care to be smart, right?
Yeah. They care. They teach you to pass a test. And
pass the SAT.
I was able to pass the test, so that's congrats to me.
Right.
Yeah. So I was able to find out that there's like a lot of power in information, and I mean, of course, at 2007, 2008, that's whenever like the internet was like super ramping up and social media was ramping up and stuff like that, and the age of information was really ramping up that time. So information became very important. So I was lucky because there was a guy in my dorm that lived on the same floor as I did, and he was a really smart guy. He was like 2 years ahead of me, and we had these, we started talking, and we had these really long conversations, and he was talking about like the Bush presidency, the Iraq war, and all kinds of stuff. And so he really introduced me to like the complexities of the political environment, and I was always really interested in like these what makes people and their like decisions so complex and stuff like that. So that really interested me. This like really heated and complex political environment. So I wasn't really a reader. He was always like, oh, you should read this book and stuff like that. I wasn't a reader at that time. So I pretty much like scoured the internet for information. And all I was really trying to learn at this time was like the structure and the function of the government.
Right.
So like the basics.
Because like early on, everybody says like that is the lever that you need to pull to change the world is to get involved in government.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I mean, eventually that's why I got involved in the student senate at Texas A&M is where I went to college.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I was like, oh, I can, it's going to look good on the old resume, and, I could try and, play government pretty much at college.
So how does that work? I'm not really familiar with how.
It was my junior year. It was whenever I was elected in student senate, and so I was living off campus, and so like the caucus or whatever with the largest amount of seats is the off campus caucus or whatever. So I was pretty much guaranteed a seat in the student senate because there were so many seats available.
Gotcha.
So I just pretty much had to like do like a social media bomb and like have all my friends vote for me. And
that was it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like the real elections.
Well, no, except that I didn't have to raise $1 bajillion. Well,
yeah, that's the only difference.
Yeah.
Is that you bomb social media and TV and advertisement.
Yeah. Instead of social media bombs, they have money bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was amazed by like how many connections I was able to make by simply searching through like Wikipedia and other sites like that. I started, also important was starting freshman year, I started seeing my dad again. And so my dad is like a extreme, like John McCain type character. So
just like hardcore then.
Very Republican, very conservative, very war hawkish. So that I started to getting that influence again.
Right.
So compounded with the college I was going to, which is super conservative student body.
So that's rare in and of itself.
Right. At college, yeah. Texas A&M is pretty unique in that its student body is very conservative.
What about the teachers?
No, they're still very left wing.
Really? How does that work?
They complain about like the student body being so conservative, but I mean it creates like an interesting environment because I mean it's fun whenever some students just don't take what the professors say at face value. They actually question what they're learning in class.
That must be exciting to like sit in those classes and
so I was an economics major and I can't remember exact circumstances or exact times whenever I did it, but I definitely loved to like question what my professors were saying. Mostly in like I took a law and economics class, and then I also took a labor economics class, and those were really cool classes. So
wow. So cool. I think at most colleges, the story that you hear is that I was sitting in class and the professor said something that was obviously wrong or that I disagreed with, but I didn't want to speak up because all the other students would treat me like an outcast or I'd get shouted down or whatever. So.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what the environment is like in like your freshman and sophomore year, but junior and senior year, your classes get really small, like 20 to 30 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're more open to saying something in the middle of class.
Cool. All right.
So this kind of gets into mid to late college, like junior, senior year. I also took an extra semester my senior year too.
So at this point, you call yourself a
Republican,
like hardcore, like line,
right? Because of all the influence I was having from the college, my peers and my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course my mom is definitely not Republican, but she wouldn't like give me any advice or any insight on what to believe. So
did you vote at all? I mean, you don't have to tell me. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I voted for one midterm election because the United States representative that was running in the district where A&M is, we knew him very well. His name was Bill Flores.
Okay.
I personally met him and stuff like that. And so thank God it was only a midterm election because I just went to the voting booth and I voted straight Republican.
I just check that box.
The
just
box
check.
at the very top.
It's just the one box?
Yeah, it's the one box at the top.
You just check the R box.
It's the vote straight Republican box.
The America vote.
Yeah, the lettering was in red, white, and blue. I don't know what that all about.
I just walked into the voting booth with my American flag stamp and I said, bang. Done. Drop the mic. Yeah, that's awesome. All right.
Yeah, no, I didn't check any box. I just had a red, white, and blue stamp that said, I vote American.
You walked into the voting booth and you shot a hole in the R. And you
it's like, what do you think?
That means Republican. Yeah, that's awesome. All right.
So this gets into like mid to late college. I became exponentially more interested in politics my junior year.
All right.
So that's whenever I was getting into, I got elected in student senate and all that. So during my time in the Senate,
we weren't really hanging out much at this point when you were in college, and all I remember is seeing some like Facebook updates go by, and I said, "Wow, he's getting involved in politics." And at this point in time, I was Republican,
right?
And so I was like, "Yeah,
go on, another soldier."
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Maybe we'll do my story someday.
Yeah.
All right.
So during my time in the Senate, since we have a primarily conservative body, like of course most of the senators are going to be conservative also. But I sat next to like one of the most like left-winged senator in the whole room, which was really interesting because even though I didn't really agree with his viewpoint, I definitely, since I sat right next to him, I took it into consideration and was able to think further upon like what was actually happening in that situation. instead of just being surrounded by a bunch of yes men and being like, oh yeah. Like we all agree with each other.
Right.
Right. So I was able to hear what he was saying and take that into consideration.
Okay. Was there any like particular issues that, you know, you started to kind of lean the other way on or, you know, wonder about?
I mean, there was like a really controversial thing where we basically like drafted this bill where we would send a letter to the state representatives saying that they should draft a bill to make it so that illegal immigrants couldn't receive in-state tuition rates. And so like I went back and forth on that and the facts and stuff like that, but I mean,
right.
We like as a student senator, you can't really do much anyway.
You're not actually doing anything.
Yeah, you can't really.
What does your Senate do? Can it affect like on-campus stuff?
Yeah,
campus
it can affect like we have to ask like the faculty to do things. Like if like
ask or tell. Do you have any like tell ability?
Well, because we can like poll the student body and be like, hey, do you want this? And then if they like vote in majority like for yes or no, then we can be like, hey, the students want this, so you should do it.
Okay, so you guys can't take a vote and pass a bill that forces the school or the teachers to do anything.
No, not really.
So you really just don't do anything.
We're just playing some government. People are getting power trips.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, I get it. What is that for? Like, what's the purpose of that? Just to practice being in politics or resume building for politics?
Yeah, it's resume building and experience, and it's basically so that people can get exposure, pretty much. Because if you get elected to like student body president, then you get to meet with a lot of really influential people and stuff like that. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I got to go to like the state capitol and meet like some representatives and stuff like that. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was kind of cool, I guess.
Who'd you meet? Anybody special?
Nah. Actually, I mean, most of the time,
none of them are special. So good answer.
Not really. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like meet like briefly. We mostly just talk to their aides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
You can't do anything either. Yay!
Yeah, to try and get like funding for the university.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, I had two libertarian presidents. Or two
what?
Oh,
that never happened. Lies. You are lying.
two libertarian roommates.
Okay.
One of them was junior year, one of them was senior year.
Okay.
One was kind of like, he had libertarian ideals, but he also leaned Republican, sort of.
Yep.
The other one was like straight libertarian, like really non-intrusive. He loved like isolationist.
The libertarian wing of the Republican Party, right?
Yeah, well, that's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while I was like coming home from school and watching hours of like Fox News, like Glenn Beck and stuff like that, afterwards, you know, if you watch like Fox News for a couple hours a day, then you're pretty much like charged up, ready to like start a war after a few hours of Fox News. So I would come out of my room and be like, I can't believe that these motherfuckers, and he would be like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like,
oh, the libertarian guy.
Yeah.
The hardcore one or the...
Yeah, just like the straight libertarian one.
Okay.
Yeah. Like,
so the thinker.
Right.
Okay.
So I would be like, say like drugs. I'd be like, I can't believe these guys are just out there like, you know, there's like all this crack on the streets and stuff like that. And he'd be like, I don't care. Like, they're not hurting anybody else.
Right.
So why would I care about that? Like, that kind of stuff. Or during the elections, I'd be like, oh, you know, Rick Perry's going to be running. And he'd be like, woo. Like, who gives a shit, right?
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah. So, you know,
I'm going to use that when somebody tells me who they're voting for in this election.
Woo! What does it all mean, Basil?
Oh, Hillary's running? Woo!
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty much, it's really hard to
Are you ready for Hillary?
Hillary Clinton?
Yeah. What Hillary do you think?
My sister's name is Hillary.
Oh. Is she running for president?
No.
Because that's what we were talking about.
Oh, okay.
No, that's her campaign slogan, right? She's
Is that her slogan? Are you ready
H
for Hillary?
with the arrow, like, are you ready for Hillary? And then the bumper stickers are like, I'm ready for Hillary.
No one's ready for fucking Hillary. She comes around the corner and like, oh shit.
Anyway, sorry. I told you my job is to derail you. So,
yeah. So,
moving on.
Yeah, so it's really hard not to be like, to just like get on the bandwagon, like the conservative Republican bandwagon A&M, because being an economics major, my classes were in the Bush School. So Herbert Walker Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, has his library in his school at A&M. And so I pretty much saw him like many times a year, just walking the halls with Secret Service.
H.W. Bush.
Yeah, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Cool.
Yeah.
George Herbert. Wait, that's the second one.
George H.W. Bush.
That's the second one. Or the first one. Which one is it?
George H.W. Bush.
Okay.
That's the first one.
First one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really old one.
Okay. Sorry. H.W. What's the second one?
Just W. George W. Bush.
See, that's what tripped me out. They both had W.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they really like to confuse the shit out of you.
See, what we'll do is
I'll put an H. For my son, we'll get rid of the H.
and then people will think he's me.
They'll be like, wait, are we voting for George Herbert Walker Bush?
Or just
He's coming back. He's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really
Thought
easy.
you could only run for 2 terms.
Right. So it was really easy to adopt the Republican standpoint. I even saw a speech by Eric Cantor whenever I was at A&M too. So all kinds. And I saw like Rick Perry. He would come into town sometimes because he graduated from Texas A&M too. Back whenever it was like a purely military school.
All right.
So between my dad, my college, Fox News, and the Student Senate, I was like pretty much sold on being a Republican. And of course, like I said, the first election was a midterm election. I voted straight Republican.
Yep.
So this is pretty much the turning point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
all right. Now's a good time to probably pause for the first. This will be part 1 of 2. We'll probably break it up into 2.
Yeah.
Part 2, we're going to continue with the turning point and find out how you came to the psychoses that you're at today, I guess. All right. Thanks for watching.
Oh, shit, it's Hillary Clinton.
See you in a minute. We'll be back.
Woo!